Usually we can break up knives into a few different categories. You have your Bushcraft style knives, and you have your survival style knives, and I'm not really too keen on that term, but I'm not going to get into it here in this video. There are combat style knives, and then you have hunting knives, and there are many hunting knives that are very, very good at crossing over into the bushcraft world, and I really, really like that. I think there's a lot of features on some of these hunting knives that really suit how I roll in the woods. I have a system with me, as if you've watched any of my videos, you know that, and I almost always have a heavier chopping tool, and usually it's an axe or a hatchet, but I do enjoy a larger knife from time to time too. And I always carry a large slip joint folder. And that gets the majority, between that and my hatchet or axe, get the majority of all my woodwork. Tent pegs to different notches, shelters, firecraft, all sorts of things like that. So when I look for a knife, I don't necessarily want it to only excel at woodworking. And when I look at a knife too, I don't just want it to excel at only hunting or caping and skinning or filleting. I want it to just be a well-rounded knife, more of a general utility. And there's some designs that allow themselves to be more for general utility use. One I wanted to talk about today is the Blackjack Model 125. This is in stacked leather with A2 tool steel. This has a wonderful convex grind on it. And it's a 1/4 inch thick starting down here. I want to say the blade originally was about 5 inches long. Now, I had accidentally chipped the tip off of this, boring into wood, doing some hearthboard work. I was going back and forth between this and my Woodlore clone. And this will not hold a candle to that Woodlore clone in terms of boring wood like that. Okay, that's not how this knife was designed. But I ended up making a knife far superior, in my belief, to being more of what I need out here. And it's sort of maybe a drop point or spear point, you may even call it. It's sort of, pretty much in direct line with the handle now. And so this is a great knife. This choil does allow you to choke up. I know a lot of people don't like things between their fingers and their knife edge in terms of woodworking, in things like that. And I know some people don't like to not have a guard when they're inside the guts of an animal cutting what they need to cut. There's danger of slippage. So in this sense, the half guard works out perfect, and the half guard works out nice too with a pretty much an oval handle to identify which way the blade's facing if it's nighttime and you're doing some work and you set it down or whatever. It's very handy. I find that it doesn't get in the way really much at all. It's a very nice guard, aluminum guard, milled out. So like I said, now this knife is far more robust in the tip and is 90'd off here from the process. So this will strike a ferro rod, and I guess if you wanted, you could process some tinder on that. Okay. Like I said, most of my woodwork is done with an axe, and anything I cannot handle with the axe, which is very, not really much, is done with this. So if I have to do figure 4 traps and things like that and play around, this knife gets those types of chores. So rarely do I really use a belt knife a lot. But when I do, as I said, I want to be able to do some food prep with it. I want to be able to do some game and these different things. This is marketed as a heavy hunter. All right, it is a hidden tang. Goes all the way to the bottom, to the pommel, screwed in there. Now, do not be worried about breaking this knife unless you were a chimp and you do what I did, or you are more of a chimp and you completely destroy it. But if you're not breaking your wood, if you're not breaking your Mora knives, you will not break this. Okay, you probably could baton a Mora in half with this knife. you probably could shave the edge off a Mora knife with this knife. We have geometry working for us, which is great. So as the knife dulls, it still slices, shaves, and cuts very well, because geometry is the most important thing. And we have great heat treat on a pretty good steel. So we have a lot of this. And because of this great heat treatment and geometry on this very good steel, we're allowed to get this nice profile. All right, very low resistance cutting anything on this. Okay, so with that in mind, I was just going to do a few things and just maybe leisurely make something like a pot hanger here. And this is just some maple. It's been down for just a little bit, but let's see what we can accomplish here with just some ease. So if you wanted to be around camp and do certain tasks like this knife will handle it no problem. As I said, I've done hearth boards out with this knife, drilled different things out, and of course food prep is incredible. These are designed after a Randall Model 25 is sort of where this idea had come from. As I said, very, very efficient slicer. You can't deny physics. It's always there. It's like gravity. And in terms of sharpening a knife like this out in the field, it's extremely easy. Extremely easy. I have a video about it's called stropping versus honing, or maybe it's honing versus stropping. I apologize. And the video I talk about and I show that I have a belt that you would wear with your pants, and part of it is done I rubbed in some green compound. So out in the field, I can hone and sharpen a knife like this very quick. There's no big bevel here to sharpen out in the field, mind you, like we have with our Scandinavian ground knives. And I always find that a disadvantage with a Scandinavian ground knife. And any type of diamond impregnated media that you sharpen your knife with out here, maybe it's a DC4 stone, you'll roll through that stone quicker with a knife that needs to be maintained, that wide bevel that you're sharpening, you're removing all that metal from. Also on top of that, as I said, we can do different things and not worry about dulling the knife to such a degree that it won't cut. Where a thick Scandinavian ground knife, you have to worry about those things, because if you're not really sharpening it, once that wicked sharp edge is gone, you're pushing against a very wide bevel at that point. Now, I don't want you to think that I don't like Scandinavian knives at all, because that's not true. I do, and I do like they do have great purpose out there. And as I said, it is all how you want to roll out there. It's not how anyone else wants to roll. I'm just showing something that may work for certain people who want to be able to do some different things. As I said, I work with a system. I don't want a knife completely dedicated to one task, i.e. just strictly woodwork and shaving wood. Or on the other side of it, just strictly hunting, or just strictly small game. As I said, I don't have backup knives. I never bring a backup knife. I bring a secondary knife. So if I plan on doing a lot of carving, where maybe something like this slip joint could get very uncomfortable, I may bring a carving knife. I may bring a spoon knife. I may bring a small gouge. That may be a secondary tool inside my haversack. If I'm going fishing, I will bring a fillet knife. And you see the direction I'm going with that. So pretty much have something, all right, that could be usable. This knife, as I said, you functions very nice out here. I don't see where you would have any issue doing certain types of woodwork with this. And as I've stated, yes, there are pros and cons to certain things, as with anything. So you've got to find out what type of person you are out there. Then you got to figure out the tools. You don't grab the tool before you sort of figure that out. I guess you got to try a few different things and see where you land. But most of us were outside ridge running long before we got into tools, and we're usually just fine with a pack of Marlboro cigarettes and a lighter. Usually was about all I needed, and a folding pocket knife. Excuse me. But of course, your needs or your wants get more and more as you get older and older, and plus the overall interest in woodcraft and bushcraft became more and more for me, and I wanted to do different things that, let's face it, you just can't do without the tools. So I like to bring tools, and I like to know my way around a lot of them, and as you, and if you're watching this, you obviously have been thinking about this 125, and I'll tell you, it's you would be impressed with how it works. And I know that if I was going to do some hunting or whatever, I'd have an excellent blade to be butchering game with. Now, does my modification that I made out of necessity, of course, to this point, will it affect it much in the skinning process? You might ask that question. I'm not sure. I would imagine it might. The maker and the designer of the overall design of this knife knows more about that, and they obviously shaped it like that for a reason. Now, it is, in a sense, I guess, a piece of functional art. It does have some a little bit of a grandiose design to it, if you will. Maybe even some may argue beyond what is necessary, but I sort of like the look of certain things like that. As I said, I do use Scandies, and I have Scandi knives, and I usually prefer the ones on the thinner side. And it's because the thicker they get, the less they really do well. Even thick, the thick Scandi ground knife in wood, planing wood, to make feather sticks, I find is noticeably more difficult. Doing chest lever grips in things in harder woods and stuff like that, I find is noticeably more, and that's just staying within the Scandi grind from thick to thin. And that's with any grind. Obviously, the thicker you go, you're going to give up something to get something. But there's a point where you're exceeding it, where you're not getting, your performance might be out of whack. So you got to figure that out too for yourself, obviously. How thick of a knife do you need? I say go as thin as you can get away with for your style, because it's gonna work that much better. All right, well, I just whipped up a couple here on this stick here, just to show you. And you can see it does make rather quick work out of it. You'll have no issues getting through things with this knife. I find it rather comfortable to use. It doesn't really cause any hot spots. The handle is quite neutral, and it's great at indexing. That's what it was designed to do, was index well. Mostly index well with slippery hands, slippery cold hands. So this works out good in a bushcraft scenario, or if some of you are into the survival scenario. If you can find a hunting knife that is durable enough to do for to suit you for your bushcraft needs, I say go for it. You'll get the best of both worlds. You'll get a decent hunting knife and a decent bushcrafting knife. Of course, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Take care.